Hello everyone, in this short we're going to cover Terraform checks. Terraform checks are a recently released feature in Terraform 1.5 that you can use to passively validate your infrastructure. I have a configuration here that creates an SSH key and a DigitalOcean droplet, and I have a check defined here to passively check my configuration. Inside of a check, you can have one data source that you can use to read data from, or you don't need one, right? You don't need a data source if you don't want one. But you need to have at least one assertion in the check. The assertions are your kind of like your tests almost, right? Like you're asserting that this condition is true or false, and you can provide the error message when it is, when it fails. So checks are interesting in Terraform because they're passive, right? There are other features in Terraform that are a little bit more active in preventing things from happening, but checks are passive. They don't affect how a run's going to occur. So what do I mean by that? If I apply this configuration, you'll see that Terraform wants to read in that data source from my check, and it didn't say anything to me, right? It's very quiet when things are good because my check is actually passing, right? The check here is going to read my droplet that I created and assert that its region is New York City 3, NYC 3. And now I know this is a more of a trivial check, and you might want to have more assertions and more complex assertions for your use case. But what happens when this fails, right? Let's say let's change the check to assert on New York City 1 instead. And if we do Terraform apply, you'll see that the check fails, but it still allows the runs to go through, right? It doesn't actively block anything. It's just going to put that warning right in your face saying like, hey, this check's failing. So when we say checks are more of a passive thing, this is what we mean, right? They're not going to stop you mid-run. They're not going to prevent you from moving forward. They're just going to put that information in front of you and say, hey, like this resource, this configuration that you're creating and managing, it might not be up to the par that you want it to be, right? The checks are failing. There's a problem. So you as the operator can then go in and like think about what you want to do and say, oh yeah, this check's actually wrong, or oh wow, actually my infrastructure is wrong. This really should have been in New York City 1. And then now you can go rectify that and you can apply that, and you can see like the Terraform will say, hey, you want to run a check, but I won't know the data that's needed for the check until after the apply. I'm just letting you know. I can't evaluate it at this time. But if you go ahead and update your infrastructure now and you say like, oh wait, this actually should have been in New York City 1, you can go ahead and do that. And then the check will run after this is all done, and it'll basically just be silent, right? Like the check won't log anything. So checks are a good way to validate your infrastructure in a more passive way. Kind of like if you like that log approach where you can see like information about like, oh, this is bad or this is good. Checks are a good thing for you. They're kind of like the precursor to a new feature coming in Terraform Test. You can see that in the alpha builds of Terraform 1.6. But checks are that good way to have that passive information. So to recap, Terraform checks allow you to passively monitor and assert on your configuration. They won't actually stop you from doing anything, but they'll just put information right in front of you in the form of warnings so that you as the operator can make a decision, say like, hey, like something's wrong, right? So a good way to validate things from a passive perspective. I hope you enjoyed this short. I will see you in the next one.